The last sun of the Caliph system was dying, painting everything in blood-red light. Admiral Hannah stood on her command bridge, watching her world burn below. Her hands gripped the metal railings so tight her knuckles turned white. For over 200 years, her people had been the guardians of this part of space. The Calithians were tough, smart, and never backed down from a fight. But now they were losing badly. The enemy called themselves the Void Collective. They showed up 3 months ago with ships that looked like floating nightmares, all sharp edges and dark metal that seemed to eat light itself. Wherever they went, planets died, not just defeated, completely erased, like they never existed. At all, Admiral, called out Lieutenant June from his station. His young face was covered in sweat, and his voice shook. Our plasma batteries are almost empty. Only 12% power left. Hannah closed her eyes for a moment. Those batteries were their strongest weapons. If they were nearly dead, then so were they. What about the missile pods? She asked, already knowing the answer. All fired, ma'am. We hit them with everything we had. Their shields just ... adapted. Every time we found a weakness, they fixed it in seconds. That was the worst part about fighting the Void Collective. Their technology learned from every attack. The more you fought them, the stronger they became. It was like punching water. No matter how hard you hit, just float around your fist. Hannah looked at the big screen showing their battle situation. Red dots marked dead planets. Yellow dots showed worlds under attack. Green dots were the few places still safe. Every minute, more yellow dots turned red. Her communication officer, a middle-aged woman named Sora, looked up from her station. Admiral, we're getting reports from the 7th Fleet. They're gone, all of them. The bridge went quiet except for the low hum of dying engines. The 7th Fleet had 500 ships. Now they were space dust. Hannah's mind raced. In a few hours, maybe less, the Void Collective would finish with this system and move on to the next one. Then the next, till every living thing in the galaxy was gone. She remembered something from her childhood. Her grandmother used to tell her old stories late at night. Stories about the time before, when the galaxy was young and dangerous. There were tales of a species that fought like demons and protected everyone else. They were called humans, ma'am. June was staring at her. Orders. Most people thought those stories were just fairy tales. But Hannah had spent years in the old archives. Deep in the forgotten sections, she found records. Real ones. The humans were real. They had been the galaxy's protectors until something happened. The records got fuzzy after that. Some said they died out. Others claimed they just ... left. But there were frequencies. Old emergency codes that the humans used to answer distress calls. Sora, Hannah said slowly. Do you remember the ancient communication protocols from the Academy? Some of them, yes, ma'am. Find frequency 847.2, the old emergency band. Sora's fingers moved over her controls. That frequency hasn't been used in centuries, Admiral. ... Just dead space now, I know. Hannah walked over to Sora's station. Send a message on that frequency. Maximum power. Broadcast it to every corner of the galaxy. What message, ma'am? Hannah thought about her people dying below. About all the worlds already lost. About the children who would never grow up if the Void Collective kept spreading. Tell them. ... quotes. She paused. Tell them the galaxy is dying. Tell them we need help. Tell them we're sorry for whatever we did wrong. June looked confused. Admiral, who are we talking to? Ghosts, maybe. Legends. Or maybe something more. She turned to face the big screen where enemy ships were getting closer. But right now, there are only hope. Sora worked at her controls. Message ready, Admiral. Send it. All frequencies. All directions. Keep sending it until our power runs out. The message shot out into space faster than light. It carried with it the desperate hope of a dying species. In the deep, dark places between stars, ancient listening posts heard it. Systems that had been sleeping for 300 years suddenly came alive, somewhere far away, in ships bigger than cities. Alarms started ringing. Ow. And in the cold sleep chambers, giants began to wake up. The sound was so quiet, You could barely hear it. It's just a soft ding, like a bell ringing far away. After 300 years of total silence, it was loud enough to wake the dead. Admiral Minho's eyes snapped open inside his cryopod. The thick glass cover was covered with frost, making everything look blurry. He tried to move, but his muscles felt like frozen steel. That was normal after being asleep for so long. All around him, thousands of other pods were lighting up. Blue lights flickered, on row after row, stretching as far as his eyes could see. The revival process had started. After 3 centuries, the human fleet was waking up. The pod cover hissed open, and warm air rushed in. Minho took his first real breath in, longer than most civilizations had existed. His throat felt like sandpaper, but he was alive. "Easy, sir. Don't try to sit up too fast." Captain Juwan was standing next to his pod, already fully awake and dressed in her black fleet uniform. She must have been one of the first to wake up. Her face looked exactly the same as it did when they went to sleep. That was the magic of cryosleep. Time just stopped. "How long?" Minho's voice came out as a whisper. 307 years, sir. Almost to the day." Juwan helped him swing his legs out of the pod. "Your muscles will be weak for a few hours. The medical nanobots are already working to fix that." Minho looked around the massive cryo bay. It was like a metal cathedral, with pods stacked 20 levels high. Each pod held a human soldier, engineer, or officer. The best and brightest of humanity's military forces. They had all volunteered to sleep until they were needed again. "Why are we awake, Captain?" Guan's face got serious. "We received a distress signal, sir, on the old emergency frequency. The one we used during the protection wars." That made Minho stop moving. The old emergency frequency was something only a few species knew about. It was the code they used when things got really bad, when entire worlds were in danger. "Show me," he said. Juwan helped him walk to the command center. His legs felt like rubber, but they were getting stronger with each step. The nanobots in his blood were working fast to repair 3 centuries of muscle loss. The command center was huge, with screens covering every wall. Most of them were black, but a few showed the basic ship status. Everything was green. After all, this time, the Eternal Dawn was still in perfect condition. "Computer, play the received message," Juwan said. A voice filled the room. It was female, speaking in a language Minho recognized as Calithian. The computer automatically translated it into human speech. "This is Admiral Hannah of the Calithian Defense Force. Our people are dying. Our worlds are burning. Something called the Void Collective is destroying everything in its path. We cannot stop them. We have tried everything. Please, if anyone can, hear this. We need help. We're sorry for what happened before. We know we asked you to leave, but now we are begging you to come back. The galaxy is dying, and you are our only hope." The message played again and again. It had been repeating for hours. Minho sat down heavily in the command chair. Memories came flooding back. The protection wars, when humanity had fought to keep the galaxy safe from threats just like this one. The grateful alien species who called them heroes. And then later, when those same species got scared, when they realized that humans were too good at war, too powerful, too dangerous to have around during peacetime. "Sir?" Juan was watching him carefully. "Your orders?" Minho remembered the vote. 73 alien species, all agreeing that humanity should leave the galaxy. They were polite about it, called it the Great Withdrawal, said it was for everyone's safety. But the message was clear: get out and don't come back. So they did. The entire human military packed up and flew to the edge of known space. They built hidden bases in dead systems where no one would find them. And then they went to sleep, promising to wake up only if the galaxy truly needed them again. "How many ships do we have operational?" Minho asked. Giwan checked her tablet. "The Eternal Dawn is fully powered. Long-range sensors show the other. Dreadnoughts are coming online too. Looks like the entire Third Fleet is waking up." The Third Fleet, 50 massive warships, each one bigger than most space stations. each one carrying enough firepower to level a planet. They were built during humanity's darkest hour, when it looked like the galaxy might actually lose the protection wars. Send a message to all fleet commanders, Minho said. It's full revival protocols. I want everyone awake in 6 hours. Yes, sir. In the alien distress call. Minho looked at the main screen, where the message from Admiral Hannah was still playing. He could hear the desperation in her voice, the fear. It reminded him of other voices, from other species, during other dark times. The galaxy threw us out because they were afraid of us, he said quietly. They called us monsters, said we were too violent, too dangerous to exist alongside civilized people. Juan nodded. She remembered too. But now their civilized ways aren't working, Minho continued. Now, they need their monsters back. He stood up, feeling his strength returning. Around them, the eternal dawn was coming fully alive. Lights were turning on throughout the massive ship. In the distance, he could hear the sound of 10,000. People waking up from the longest sleep in human history. Wake the fleet, Captain. All of it. It's time to remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us in the first place. The space around the dying Calith system suddenly started to shimmer like water. Admiral Hannah watched from her damaged command bridge as reality itself seemed to crack open. What came through those cracks made her crew forget how to breathe. Ships. But calling them ships was like calling a mountain a rock. These things were the size of small moons, their dark metal hulls stretching for miles in every direction. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces, and weapon ports bigger than her entire vessel dotted their sides like glowing eyes. By the ancient gods, whispered Lieutenant June. How big are those things? Hannah couldn't answer. She was too busy trying to understand what she was seeing. These weren't just warships, they were flying cities. Each one could hold millions of people and enough weapons to crack planets in half. Her communication officer, Sora, looked up with wide eyes. Admiral, we're being hailed. They want to meet with you. Where? On their flagship.
Ow.
They're sending a shuttle. The shuttle that came for them was sleek and black, about the size of Hannah's old house. It moved without any visible engines, just gliding through space like it was swimming through water. When Hannah and her 2 guards climbed aboard, they found the inside was bigger than it looked from outside. The seats were comfortable and everything was perfectly clean. The flight to the human flagship took 20 minutes. As they got closer, Hannah realized just how massive the thing really was. Cities had been built smaller than this ship. It had towers and domes and what looked like parks, with actual trees growing inside force fields. The hangar bay they landed in was so big, it had its own weather. Hannah could see clouds forming near the ceiling, which was so high up it looked like a gray sky. Hundreds of smaller ships were parked in neat rows, and people in black uniforms were walking around doing maintenance work. This way, please, said their escort, a young human woman with short black hair. She led them through corridors that felt more like streets than hallways. There were shops, restaurants, and even what looked like a school. This wasn't just a warship, it was a complete city flying through space. They finally reached a large room with a high ceiling and windows that showed the stars outside. At the center stood a man in a simple black uniform. He was average height, maybe a bit shorter than Hannah expected. His hair was black with some gray at the edges, and his eyes were dark brown. Nothing about him looked special, but when he looked at her, Hannah felt like she was standing in front of a sleeping volcano. There was power there. Dangerous, controlled power. Admiral Hannah, the man said. His voice was calm and quiet. I am Admiral Minho of the Human Defense Fleet. I tried to speak, but her throat felt dry. This was really happening. The legends were real. Humans were real. You sent a distress call on our old emergency frequency, Minho continued. That frequency has been silent for 307 years. Yes, sir, we didn't know. If anyone would answer, Minho walked to the large windows and looked out at the stars. Your people voted us out of the galaxy. 73 species all agreed that humans were too dangerous to exist alongside civilized worlds. Hannah felt her cheeks burn with shame. She remembered learning about that in school. The Great Withdrawal, they called it. Back then, It seemed like the right thing to do. Humans had ended the protection wars by destroying their enemies so completely that nothing was left. Other species got scared of that level of power. "We called you monsters," Minho said, still looking at the stars. "Said you were too violent, too good at war, too willing to do whatever it took to win." "We were wrong," Hannah said quietly. Minho turned around to face her. "Were you? Look around this ship, Admiral. Look at my fleet. We built these things to fight wars that would end entire civilizations. Every weapon on these ships was designed to kill on a scale that most species can't even imagine." Hannah looked around the room. Even here in what seemed like a peaceful meeting space, she could see the signs. The walls were too thick. The windows were made of something that could probably stop nuclear explosions. Even the furniture looked like it could double as armor. "The Void Collective has destroyed 17 star systems," she said. "Billions of people are dead. Our weapons can't even scratch their ships, and you want us to stop them?" "Yes," Minho was quiet for a long moment. "Do you understand what you're asking? You want us to wake up from 3 centuries of peace and go back to being the thing you were afraid of?" Hannah nodded. "I know what we're asking. If we do this, we do it our way. No rules about protecting enemy civilians if they're helping the collective. No limits on what weapons we can use. No politics or committees telling us how to fight." The room got very quiet. Hannah could hear her own heartbeat. "If we fight," Minho continued, "we fight to end this completely. Total victory. No mercy for anyone who stands with our enemies. That's how humans wage war, Admiral. That's why your people were afraid of us." Hannah thought about her burning homeworld, about all the dead systems, about the children who would never grow up if the Void Collective kept spreading. "Do it," she said. Misho studied her face for what felt like forever. Then he nodded. "Welcome back to the war, Admiral. I hope you remember why you were afraid of us." As if summoned by his words, alarms started ringing throughout the massive ship. Through the windows, Hannah could see more human vessels appearing from hyperspace. Dozens of them, all the size of moons, all ready for war. The monsters were awake again. Captain Sunho sat in his command chair aboard the Silent Thunder, watching something that made his blood boil. Through the main view screen, he could see a convoy of refugee ships trying to escape from a dying world. They were big, slow cargo vessels packed with families who had lost everything. Men, women, children, all hoping to reach safety. But they weren't going to make it. The Void Collective had found them. 50 warships, each one looking like a nightmare made of black metal and sharp edges, were closing in on the convoy like wolves, surrounding sheep. The refugee ships had no weapons, no shields worth mentioning. They were sitting ducks. "Captain," said his weapons officer Yeji from her station, "we're receiving distress calls from the convoy. They're begging for help." Sunho's jaw tightened as he watched the enemy ships move into attack position. The Silent Thunder was just one ship, a reconnaissance vessel, built for watching and reporting, not for fighting entire fleets. His crew numbered only 200 people. "Sir," called out his tactical officer Dong Yun, "I'm counting 50 enemy vessels. Heavy cruisers and battleships. We're outnumbered 50 to 1. Any sane captain would have stayed hidden. The smart thing to do was record what happened and report back to the fleet. One ship couldn't possibly fight 50 and win. It was suicide." But Sunho had been asleep for 300 years, dreaming of the days when humans protected the innocent. He'd woken up to find a galaxy where monsters like the Void Collective could hunt refugees without anyone stopping them. "Then it's a fair fight," he said coldly. His crew looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Yeji actually checked her readings. "Twice, sir. Did you say fair fight?" "There are 50 of them. I know how to count, Lieutenant." Sunho leaned forward in his chair. "The question is whether 50 is enough." He pressed a button on his armrest. Throughout the ship, alarms started ringing. The Silent Thunder had been coasting on minimal power to avoid detection. Now it was time to wake up. "All hands to battle." "Stations," Sunho announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. We have civilians under attack and we're going to stop it." The ship transformed around them. What had looked like a simple scout vessel suddenly revealed its true nature. Armor plates slid into place. Weapon ports opened along the hull. Energy readings spiked as the reactor went to full power. Weapons. Hot, reported Yeji. Antimatter torpedoes loaded. Plasma cannons charging. Sir Dong-Yun said nervously, "The enemy fleet has detected us. They're turning our way." On the view screen, the Void Collective ships were indeed changing course. They moved like insects, their dark hulls gleaming with an oily light. Probably never seen a human ship before, so they had no idea what they were dealing with. "Perfect," Sunho said. "Fire everything." What happened next lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. But those 4 minutes changed everything. The Silent Thunder didn't fight like other ships. It didn't trade shots back and forth or try to outmaneuver the enemy. Instead, it unleashed hell. The first salvo was antimatter torpedoes. Not the weak antimatter weapons that other species used, but true human military-grade warheads. When they hit the Void Collective ships, they didn't just explode. They erased matter from existence, leaving perfect spheres of nothing in space. "Direct hits on targets 1 through 12, Yaji reported, her voice filled with amazement. "They're just ... gone." The enemy fleet tried to respond. Their adaptive shields, which had stopped every weapon the galaxy could throw at them, came online. These shields learned from each attack and became stronger. They'd made the Void Collective nearly invincible, but they'd never faced human weapons before. The Silent Thunder's plasma cannons didn't fire normal plasma. They fired streams of matter that had been restructured at the atomic level. The Void Collective shields tried to adapt, tried to learn how to stop this new attack. They failed. "Enemy shields are collapsing," Dong-Yun reported. "I don't understand how, but our weapons are just cutting through them like they're not even there." "That's because they're not," Sunho explained. "Our plasma beams don't just hit the shields. They rewrite the basic structure of whatever they touch. You can't adapt to something that changes the laws of physics." More enemy ships died. Their hulls, which had seemed so strong and scary, melted like ice in a furnace. The Void Collective had conquered dozens of species, destroyed hundreds of worlds. But they'd never fought anyone who understood war the way humans did. "Sir, the remaining enemy ships are trying to retreat," Yaji said. "Let them go," Sunho ordered. "They need to tell their friends what happened here." In less than 5 minutes, 50 Void Collective warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of superheated gas. The refugee convoy was safe. The Silent Thunder hadn't even taken damage. Sunho opened a channel to broadcast on all frequencies. Every ship, every station, every planet in the area would hear this message. "This is Captain Sunho of the human Navy vessel, Silent Thunder," he said calmly. "To any Void Collective forces listening, we know what you've been doing. We know about the worlds you've destroyed and the people you've killed. That ends now." Paused, letting his words sink in. "We've been asleep for 300 years, but we're awake now. And we remember how to fight monsters." The message broadcast across space at light speed. On Void Collective command ships, alien generals watched the recordings in shock. Their most powerful fleet had been destroyed by a single human vessel. If this was just one ship, what could their entire fleet do? For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Void Collective knew fear, and somewhere in the deep dark between stars, thousands more human ships were waking up, ready to remind the galaxy why monsters once hid when humans went to war. The Titan Nebula had been quiet for 300 years. It was a dead place, full of cosmic dust and the remains of old stars. Nothing lived there. Nothing moved there. It was the perfect place to hide an entire civilization. But now it was waking. Up, Admiral Minho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching through the massive view screen as space itself came alive. One by one, his fleet was emerging from their hiding places deep in the nebula. Each ship was a city unto itself, carrying millions of people and weapons that could reshape reality. "Fleet status report," he ordered. Captain Jiwan checked her displays. 3,200 vessels have reported ready for combat, sir." That's the entire war fleet. Every dreadnought, every carrier, every support ship we have. Minho nodded. The human war fleet wasn't just a military force. It was an entire civilization that had been sleeping between the stars. Farmers, teachers, children, engineers, all of them had volunteered to go into the cold, dark, and wait for the day when the galaxy needed them again. That day had come. "Sir," reported his communications officer, Kuhn. "We're getting reports. From across the galaxy, the Void Collective has 17 major fleets moving toward populated systems. They're not even trying to hide anymore." On the tactical display, red markers showed enemy movements. The Void Collective had grown bold during humanity's long sleep. They moved through space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Worlds that had taken millions of years to develop life were being turned into empty rocks in a matter of hours. "They think they've already won," Minho said quietly. "Hey, sir, incoming transmission." "It's from the Void Collective Supreme Commander." Minho wasn't surprised. Enemy had probably detected the human fleet emerging from the nebula. 3,000 ships the size of small moons were hard to miss. Put it on screen. The view screen changed to show something that barely looked alive. The Supreme Commander was a mix of machine and flesh, with metal tubes running through what might have been skin. Its eyes were dead black holes, and when it spoke, the sound came from speakers grafted into its throat. "Humanity," it said through universal translators, "you have been gone for centuries. This galaxy belongs to us now." "Does it?" Minho asked calmly. "We offer terms. Withdraw to your nebula. Sleep again. We will allow your species to survive if you do not interfere with our harvest." Minho looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting to see what he would do. Behind them, through the view screen, he could see more human ships taking formation. Each one was ready to fight. Each one carried people who had given up everything to be here. "No," Minho said simply. The Supreme Commander's face twisted. "You refuse our mercy? You had 3 centuries to learn how to coexist with other species. You chose to be predators instead. You chose to murder entire worlds full of innocent people." Minho's voice stayed calm, but there was steel underneath. "That ends today. You cannot stop us. We are Legion. We have consumed 1,000 civilizations. We've destroyed threats that consumed galaxies." Minho leaned forward in his command chair. "The difference between us is simple. You kill because you want to. We kill because we have to." The transmission cut off. Across space, the Void Collective fleets were turning toward the human ships. They came in waves, their dark hulls blotting out the stars. There were thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. An armada that had never known defeat. "All ships," Minho broadcast to his fleet. "This is Admiral Minho. Today we remind the galaxy why the darkness fears the light. Today we show these monsters what happens when they threaten the innocent." He paused, looking out at his massive fleet. Each ship represented the best of humanity. Their technology, their courage, their absolute refusal to let evil win. Fire at will. What followed wasn't really a battle. It was an execution. The human weapons didn't just destroy enemy ships, they unmade them. Antimatter streams that could cut through planets like hot knives through butter. Plasma cannons that fired compressed stars. Missile volleys that opened holes in space itself. The Void Collective's adaptive shields, which had made them nearly invincible, simply stopped working. Human weapons operated on principles that the enemy couldn't understand, much less defend against. "Enemy Fleet 7 is completely destroyed," reported Captain Jiwan. "Enemy Fleet 12 is retreating." "No retreat," Minho ordered. "We end this here, today, forever." The Battle of the Burning Nebula lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Void Collective was gone, not defeated, not retreating, gone. Every ship, every base, every trace of their civilization had been erased from existence. Across the galaxy, worlds that had been preparing for death suddenly found themselves free. The nightmare was over. Admiral Hannah watched from her rebuilt command ship as the human fleet regrouped. The war giants hung in space. Like sleeping dragons, their weapon ports still glowing with barely contained power. They had saved everyone, just like in the old stories, but now what? Admiral Minho is requesting a meeting, her communications officer reported. Put him through. Minho's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but satisfied. It's done, he said simply. Thank you, Hannah replied. We owe you everything. You owe us nothing. We did what we had to do. Minho paused. But now we have a problem. What kind of problem? We're awake again? 3,000 ships full of people who've been sleeping for centuries. The question is, what do we do now? Hannah looked out at the human fleet. Each ship could level a planet. Together, they could reshape the galaxy. The old fear started creeping. Back, these people had just proven they could destroy anything that stood against them. Will you leave again? She asked quietly. Minho was quiet for a long moment. That depends on what? On whether the galaxy has learned anything in the last 300 years? The transmission ended, leaving Hannah alone with her thoughts. Oh. Monsters had returned to save them all, but monsters, even good ones, were still dangerous. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready to live with its protectors, or if history would repeat itself. In the distance, the human ships waited. For an answer,